Discovering if you have depression can be one of the most confusing and isolating experiences in life. At first, it's common to underestimate the signs, thinking they're just a passing phase, a low tide that will soon be overcome. But what often begins as a mild, easy-to-ignore discomfort can grow, turning into a weight that feels overwhelming. Depression is insidious. It rarely presents itself clearly from the start. Instead, it creeps in slowly, taking up space in the mind and heart, changing the way you see the world, how you react to those around you, and above all, how you see yourself. Imagine waking up in the morning and immediately feeling wrapped in a thick, cold fog, with no clarity or light. You realize the day has begun, but unlike before, you don't feel any drive to get out of bed. In fact, getting up feels almost impossible. The motivation that once guided your daily activities now feels like an unattainable luxury. You try to recall the last time you genuinely felt excited to face a day, but that memory seems distant, almost as if it belongs to someone else. Depression is treacherous because it goes beyond ordinary sadness. It's not just a feeling of being down or unmotivated. It affects every aspect of your life, from daily activities to the simplest interactions. Work, school, hobbies, family relationships, and friendships start to lose meaning. You feel like you're losing parts of yourself, as if you're drifting away from who you used to be. But it's not a physical distance. It's something much deeper, an emotional detachment that you can't explain. The activities that once brought joy lose their charm, and even things you used to love become tedious, colorless, and empty. Remember that show that used to make you laugh? The music that lifted you up? Or the times with friends that made time fly by? Now, these moments feel like a chore, and sometimes they even cause discomfort. It's as if, by trying to engage with them, you're forcing a connection that no longer exists. The truth is, depression robs the brightness from things, leaving everything around you gray and lifeless. And this sense of disconnection from what once brought pleasure can be one of the first signs that something is truly wrong. One of the most devastating aspects of depression is that it changes the way you see yourself. Self-criticism intensifies, and suddenly every little flaw or mistake seems magnified, becoming irrefutable proof that you're not enough, that there's something fundamentally wrong with you. No matter how many accomplishments you've achieved, the negative thoughts always find a way to make you doubt your worth. It's like an internal voice constantly pointing out your flaws and limiting your confidence. This inner dialogue, cruel and relentless, becomes your worst enemy, and it's often difficult to even notice it exists, as it blends with your own thoughts. These self-deprecating thoughts don't just appear occasionally. They settle in, lingering like a constant cloud. And this feeling goes beyond simply having a bad day. It's persistent, recurring, and present in almost every moment, making it difficult to escape this overwhelming self-criticism. Over time, this inner voice causes you to question the value of your own achievements and even your capacity to be happy. This vicious cycle of self-criticism becomes a kind of mental trap where every effort seems insufficient. Every step taken feels insignificant. Depression also affects the body in ways that are often underestimated. It drains your energy in a way that nothing seems able to restore. You may feel intense physical exhaustion, even after long hours of sleep. This fatigue isn't like common tiredness that fades with a good rest. It's a deep exhaustion that seems to emanate from your core. At times, the simple act of lifting a glass of water or walking across the room can feel as exhausting as running a marathon. This extreme tiredness makes any activity, no matter how simple, a challenge that requires superhuman effort. Another way depression manifests itself is through changes in appetite. For some people, food completely loses its flavor and appeal, and the simple act of eating becomes bothersome, an additional burden. For others, the search for emotional comfort leads to compulsive eating, seeking in food a momentary relief for the emptiness they feel. This troubled relationship with food reflects emotional instability and shows how depression can affect the body's most basic needs. Sleep, which should be a source of rest and recovery, is also affected by depression. Insomnia and excessive sleep are common. You may spend hours trying to fall asleep, with your mind racing in a whirlwind of anxious and negative thoughts. Or, on the other hand, you might find yourself sleeping too much, spending entire days in bed without ever feeling truly rested. This irregular sleep pattern is another indication that something is out of place and contributes to worsening feelings of exhaustion and discouragement. Beyond physical symptoms, depression affects how you relate to people around you. Isolation becomes a recurring choice. At first, you start turning down invitations, canceling commitments, and avoiding social situations. It's not that you stop caring about your friends or family, but the idea of interacting with them seems draining, almost impossible. Depression makes you feel misunderstood and alone, even when you're surrounded by people who love you. And this disconnection from others only intensifies the feeling of isolation. It's common to think that no one would be able to understand what you're going through. This feeling of invisibility, that the people around you don't perceive the depth of your suffering, is one of the most painful parts of depression. When you feel invisible, when you feel that your suffering is something only you can see, loneliness becomes something internal, an emptiness that seems endless. The emotional isolation depression creates is so powerful that, even in moments of interaction, you can feel disconnected, as if you're in a bubble that separates you from the world. Depression can also bring moments of irritability and anger. Small inconveniences that used to go unnoticed now seem unbearable. Traffic noise, an innocent comment. Anything can turn into a trigger for an outburst of intense emotions. These reactions can surprise those around you and, at times, even yourself. This irritability reflects internal struggle and accumulated frustration. It's a feeling of being at war with yourself, where even the smallest details seem threatening and annoying. As these symptoms intensify, hopelessness begins to set in. It's as if the future has lost all its brightness, as if every dream, plan, or ambition has been shrouded in shadows. The idea that things might get better seems absurd, and the hope that this state is temporary gradually fades. This hopelessness is one of the most devastating aspects of depression, as it makes you believe that there's no way out, that this suffering will be permanent, and that it's not worth fighting. Depression becomes a mental prison, where depression isn't something you can just overcome on your own. It's a condition that requires care, empathy, and, most importantly, help. Seeking support, whether with friends, family, or mental health professionals, is essential to start the healing process. Talking about these feelings and acknowledging their existence is the first step in breaking the cycle of isolation and hopelessness. Even if it's hard to see a way out, there are resources and treatments that can help. Remember, depression doesn't define who you are. It's a condition that can be treated, and with the right support, it's possible to find the path